Hello everyone and welcome to another Darktable Landscapes video, hopefully with slightly better sound than the previous video, so let me know if that works for you. In this video we're going to be processing this image from North Wales, from Snowdon in fact. This is Snowdon here, and this lake is Llyn, and this was a particularly warm sunrise shot. We're going to enhance those sunrise colours, enhance the sky, bring out this wonderful texture, and hopefully generally improve the shot. So let's get going. Okay, the first thing I want to do is slightly straighten the shot. It's leaning to the left a little bit, so find a straight edge, drag with the right click to straighten it. That's better. And I want to crop off this left side. It's slightly unbalanced, so I'm going to crop. Just going to pull this over, probably to about there. The next thing I'm going to do is just update my demosaicing, which is something that us Fujifilm users need to do, but others of you won't. If you have a Bayer sensor, you won't need to bother with this. And we'll do some lens correction as well. Just by popping that on, that should correct some distortion. And I think what we probably have is a little bit of chromatic aberration where we've got this very bright edge meeting the rocks. So we'll do a little chromatic aberration correction as well with the chromatic aberrations module. Pop that on. That generally does a good job automatically. Okay, on to the next step. We'll do some color calibration, our white balance, and that's done a fairly good job, although it's gone a little yellow. And one thing I particularly remember about this morning was that it was an incredibly pink, red sunrise. So I'm just going to restore a little bit of that by dragging this chroma slider back up a little bit. That's fine. And then a final thing we need to do before we can start playing around with colours and things like that is there's a rather distracting and not particularly attractive blob of bird droppings on the rock here in the foreground, which isn't a problem in and of itself, but it is kind of white and it tends to draw the eye. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to retouch that away. Go to our drawn tools, our path, and we will grab a little selection around there, right click to finish. We want something fairly nondescript to kind of clone into. I'm going to pull in these outer markers here just so it doesn't grab from areas it doesn't need to grab from. There we go, that's fairly innocuous, I think. Unless you were staring at it, you wouldn't really notice that was there. That's fine. Now we can start doing some more interesting adjustments. So let's have a look at sigmoid. Generally, I think sigmoid's done a pretty good job with the tone mapping. I might raise the blacks just a touch. See how that kind of gives that fade effect if I really crank it up, but I don't want too much. I just want a little hint of it. It's pretty good. And now we'll move on to the RGB module. Pop that on. Usual suite of adjustments, a slight bump in contrast and vibrance, our usual kind of stepped saturation boost. And we do this because we naturally perceive more saturation in darker tones, shadows and midtones than we do highlights. So we don't want to crank up the highlight saturation too much. We'll begin to look unnatural. And we'll just add a little bit of contrast by dropping the shadows, raising the mids. It's not bad at all. So just a bit more punch already from a few simple adjustments. Okay, now for some more targeted contrast boosts. So let's go for tone equalizer. Go to our masking tab and click the magic wand so we get the right mask. And I'll darken the darker areas just a touch, kind of -6 area. Good. Yeah, a little bit more drama, increase those shadows around the edges. It's okay for me. Okay, now I want to add some contrast to these rocks to pull out some texture. I'm going to use another instance of the tone equalizer for that, so I will right click the icon, and before I change any settings here, I'm just going to go straight to masking. So I'll use a drawn parametric mask, and looking at the scene, what differentiates these rocks from the rest of the scene most obviously is color. So what I'm going to go for is the hue slider here. So if I hover the slider and press C to view the channel data, you can see that the mountains are in fact quite distinct from the sky and even some of the surrounding rocks. We've got these slopes here which are similar, so we might have to use a drawn mask to exclude those from the effect, but that shouldn't be too problematic. So let's pop our mask on, see what we're doing. So excluding everything but the oranges, back a little bit to subtlify the effect, if that's a word. Some feathering, blurring, so you can in fact see that this is being selected as well. So we'll have to do some drawing to get rid of that. That's no problem at all. Do that now, in fact. We'll make sure our combine masks setting is set to exclusive. Grab the shape tool. We'll draw a shape here. Right click to finish. We'll need to invert this. We can see that it's kind of included everything but our parametric mask. We want to flip it, so we're going to click this polarity button. Now we can see that we've used the drawn mask to exclude this area. Pull that in. It's fine. Up. Pop my mask off now. And so my drawn mask preview, so that doesn't get in the way. Then we'll use our magic wands up here in the masking. Make our adjustments. So darker areas look to be about -4, nearly -5 EV. Light areas -3. So we'll start pulling down 5, darkening up, pull up 3. Okay. We're just adding texture and drama to those rocks as well. Okay, now we want to improve our sky. For that I'm going to use the color calibration module. We've already got one in place for our white balance, so I'm going to duplicate that with a right click, icon here, and we are going to pull our green input in the grey channel all the way up, which has made our image black and white. Fix that now. So the first thing we want to do is limit this effect just to the sky. Use a parametric mask, and the sky is very much brighter than most of the rest of the image, so we'll use the values channel here in the parametric mask just to target those bright channels. Wrong end, sorry, to exclude the dark channels. Now you can see we're starting to let that normal sky back in, so we want to back, go. And now to complete the effect, we need to change the blending mode of the mask from normal to multiply. And you can see we've got some instant drama in the sky, probably a little too much. We can pull that back. The first thing we need to do though, we look here where the mask is being applied, we've got some really nasty edging. So we are going to get rid of that with some feathering. Blur as usual. Turn our mask on. Fine. And then we can just control the overall level of the effect with the opacity mask here. Drop that down until it looks a little bit more natural, say 70%. good. Brought some texture in the sky. Drop it a little bit more, 60%. Perfect. Now I want to add some colour to the sky. We've added some contrast, a bit of punch, a bit of drama. Now we want to add some colour as well. So I'm going to use yet another colour calibration module for that. To avoid confusion, I'm going to rename this with a control click to sky drama. Right click there, we'll rename this straight away to sky colour. And let's have a look how we're going to do this. So we want to add some red tones to the sky. So we'll go to our red channel and we'll just increase this a little bit to essentially tell the red channel to contribute more red to the scene. And it's got a little bit purple, so we'll pull that back by having less blue. Let's go back to 0.2. It's a little bit more subtle, and we'll go to the blue channel, tell it to contribute a little less blue again. You can see how that adds an orangey yellow to it, so that's pretty good. Now we've kind of added the colour to the sky and enhanced the sunrise colours on the rocks, but really we don't want that here in the foreground. Sun's coming over the mountains behind us and just hitting this bit. So what I'll do is I'll use a gradient mask to just fade out the effect towards the bottom of the image. So drawn mask, gradient, and we'll pop that about there. Hold shift and roll the mouse wheel over the middle point just to pull in the gradation. So now we're only applying our mask to the top of the image. See how that looks all together. It's good. We've enhanced the sunrise colours quite nicely there. Now we'll add some clarity and texture in the time-honoured way of using contrast equalizer. I'm going to use my preset here for texture boost, which basically involves dragging up the bottom and top, or the left and right rather, of the Luma graph as the effect of boosting texture. I don't want texture necessarily all through the image. I mainly want to add it to hills again. So let's do a mask for that as well. I think what we can probably do is simply use the one that we used for our tone equalizer earlier on, the rocks contrast tone equalizer. Just use our raster mask, choose that mask from the list. And this is where naming your custom modules, if you like, comes in really handy. It's easy to identify what we're doing. We just turn that off, on. I think we could probably be a little bit more aggressive now that we've limited it to the area we want. So make my area of effect slightly larger, crank it up. I'm also going to do the same thing in the edges because we've got some fine detail there. It's nice, that's brought out some texture too. I'll rename this to texture. And then we'll duplicate. We'll use clarity boost preset, which is one of my own. As always, roll the mouse wheel bigger than the graph and then just drag the whole thing up slightly to affect clarity. Only a very little amount is generally needed. Let's see how we do that. It's nice. Read to clarity. Okay, and I think I still want to make this a little bit more red. It was definitely more red in reality. So let's go to our color EQ, color equalizer, and let's have a look at what color we need to affect. Unsurprisingly, it's the yellowy orangey. And I want to drop this down towards red, so this line shows where I want to drop. I can move my nodes over. Just drop this slightly towards red. Oh, that's too much. Obviously it wasn't purple. That's better. Yeah, that's more like it. We don't want to make it too saturated. It's saturated enough. Maybe brighten a little. Looks good to me. Okay, so finishing touches time. First vignetting. I'm going to right click and use my basic vignette with no desaturation, so just a simple oval vignette. I'm going to pull that in a little bit, maybe raise it up slightly. It's good, just focuses the attention into the middle of the image, helps give some depth. And we'll add a frame. Go for 5% white. Looks good to me. And then finally some sharpening. So diffuse and sharpen module. Right click and go for lens deblur medium. Okay. I would like to exclude kind of the sky and the edges again, just to focus attention to the middle. So we will go to draw mask. We'll just use a simple ellipse, I think. That's pretty good. Pull that in there. It's fine. That's just going to add that sharpening effect just to the middle and not kind of sharpen these edge rocks that we don't want to draw attention to particularly. And we will right click, diffuse and sharpen again, and this time we will use the local contrast preset. As always, we will drag that above our sigmoid tone mapper for best results. It tends to be quite a heavy load on the processor for this effect, so give it some time to work. And let's just give it a little more punch yet again. Okay, as ever, we'll do a before and after. So we'll take a snapshot and then scroll back to our history and go to, let's say, sigmoid, our tone mapping. Go back up to our snapshot, and then we can drag our slider along to view the effect once it's thought about what it needs to do. So we can see the effect of the crop off the edge here. Lens correction as well is changing the way things are shaped. We can see that we've added a lovely sunrise colour and more drama. Okay, that's this one finished. Hope you enjoyed it. As ever, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the next one.